Octoroks, Bokoblins, Moblins, Lizalfos, Keese, Hinixes, Lynels. You know what all of these famous enemies from the Zelda franchise have in common? They're all monsters. Like non-human monsters. Like, hey, I'm a pig person, or I'm a bat with one eye kind of non-human. We've all grown to know and love these monsters. Well, love destroying them in glorious combat anyway. But for those of you who are new to Zelda or have only played the newest game, Breath of the Wild, you may not know that there's a particular enemy in particular that's particularly non-monster. Meet the Darknut. These massive, humanoid-looking enemies are clad head to toe in several layers of massive plate armor and normally wield massive weapons used for the art of massacre. Sometimes they even have shields too. The first time you fight a Darknut in Wind Waker or Twilight Princess, it's as a mini-boss of a dungeon. Because even though more experienced players can defeat the giant knights pretty easily, if you don't know how to fight them, they can prove to be deadly opponents indeed. These tough boys have made several appearances across the franchise, from the original Legend of Zelda to Wind Waker to Twilight Princess. And in today's video, I'm going to explore everything we know about the Darknuts in order to connect them to our one and only hero, Link himself. If you're doubtfully squinting at the screen right now, just wait until the end of the video. The evidence will surprise you. And by the way, for the more savvy of you watching this, I'm specifically talking about Darknuts, not their closely resembled cousin, the Iron Knuckles. If you guys would like for me to talk about the Knuckles, let me know in a comment after the video. And also, real quick, before we delve into the content, if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you are with that bell icon for some exciting new content coming right here to the channel. Actually, I made a channel update video about some really cool announcements and thank yous that's live right now. So if you've got the time, please be sure to check that out after this video. The links to it will be in the description and on the screen right now. And that's enough of that, on to the content. One of the first things to note about Darknuts is both how similarly they appear across the games, but also how differently. And we probably need to cover this before getting into their potential connections to the hero himself. The Darknuts from the Minish Cap and the Wind Waker, when their helmets are knocked off, reveal that even though they have humanoid bodies, they have straight up Anubis-like jackal heads instead of, you know, person-like heads. Pretty monstrous indeed, but I said they were human-like earlier, right? Right, because in Twilight Princess, when you knock their helmets off, guess what? They have human heads. I mean, unless their ears are very neatly folded back into their chainmail and their snouts are being squished by those masks. So what's with this head difference anyway? Well, before we get into their differing appearances, we first need to determine what exactly Darknuts are, or rather, who exactly they were before serving the forces of demise. The most common theory for the Darknuts' true identities or hidden pasts is that they were none other than the Knights of Hyrule, also known as the Hylian Knights, but were unfortunately corrupted by Demise's hatred. There is actually a lot of evidence to support this, besides the fact that, you know, with their intelligent martial arts, armor, weaponry, and human-like forms, they kind of stand out from the other monsters of Ganon's army in general. In Twilight Princess, they're only found in the Temple of Time and Hyrule Castle itself, which are two locations that would probably realistically be guarded by Hylian Knights, given that the former location guards the Master Sword and the latter guards, you know, Princess Zelda and the Hylian Throne of Royalty, which is what they are sworn to protect as knights. They're also very tall, which is a similarity they share with the armor sets present throughout Hyrule Castle and Twilight Princess. And do make note that these are armor sets that are set on display and not statues like we see in other games. Yet the Darknuts are the only people tall enough to wear them besides Ganondorf and the Hero Shade. But, I'm getting ahead of myself. Speaking of their armor, while it isn't the armor present on display throughout the castle, and it doesn't bear any super obvious Triforce symbol anywhere on its surface, there are multiple very Loftwing-esque designs present all over their armor and at the tip of their swords, which is the bird that is commonly used to symbolize Hyrule or Hylians in general. And really, how much more knightly can their armor be? They have multiple pieces of heavy plate armor covering head to toe, face covering helmets, a layer of underlying chainmail, and a lighter sword for use in close quarters combat. Even if Darknuts weren't called Darknuts, we'd probably end up calling these guys some sort of knights because of their equipment alone. In Wind Waker, which does admittedly feature the jackal-headed Darknuts, which I will get to in just a sec, they each wear and drop a very significant piece of equipment called the Knight's Crest. Based on their name and a description given by an NPC in-game, we know that the owners of said crests were knights, and these Knight's Crests are well known by the old man named Orca on Outset Island, who states that the crests, in order to be gathered or held, must be obtained by a courageous knight that possesses not only courage but power and wisdom as well. If that doesn't alarmingly link the Knight's Crests to the fabled Knights of Hyrule, I don't know what does. The only question that remains is, are the Knight's Crests that Darknuts wear stolen, or do they actually belong to the Darknuts themselves? Well, to me, logically speaking, since every Darknut in Wind Waker has a Knight's Crest and has clearly been intelligently trained for combat, I think it's more believable to think that the crests belong to the Darknuts rather than, you know, every single Darknut just so happened to steal every other Knight's Crest and just so happened to be trained like a knight, don't you think? So, given their armor design and knightly equipment and training we see in both Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, and their locations as enemies, I tend to believe that Darknuts are none other than corrupted Knights of Hyrule. I mean, we even see directly that the Knights have been corrupted before, like in the game Four Swords Adventures, when you have to fight the 4 corrupted Hylian Knights that were even transformed into monsters. A cool little possible extra piece of evidence to further support this would be the fact that the Darknuts' original Japanese name, Tatonaku, ends in a katakana symbol, which is what the Japanese use to indicate the borrowing of a word. It's possible that the original name was meant to be Dark Knight instead of Dark Nut, but on the same note, the Japanese name for the similar iron knuckle is Ionaku, meaning either the iron knuckles may have been actually named Iron Knights or Iron Nuts, or the Darknuts may have been Dark Knuckles or Dark Knights. Anyway, as confusing as that was, I just thought that was a neat little piece of naming conspiracy. So the Darknuts are probably corrupted Hylian Knights. That's cool and all, but what's that got to do with Link? Great question, really, thanks for asking. It's long been hinted at and even confirmed in more than just one of the games that Link is actually a descendant of the Knights of Hyrule, who are a devoted people group dedicated to the protection of the royal family, whose lineage is passed down in their bloodline. The most commonly acclaimed piece of evidence to support this would be the link from A Link to the Past, or more specifically his uncle. You see, when Zelda uses her telepathy at the beginning of the game to contact Link's uncle, and by extension Link himself, it's revealed that she was actually trying to get a hold of the Knights of Hyrule, who were the sworn protectors of the royal family. Since Link is a member of the knightly bloodline, he was contacted as well as his uncle. Secondly, in the most recent installment of Breath of the Wild, Link is again straight up confirmed to be a member of the Hylian Knights, since Zelda claims that his father was also a knight. Other instances we can deduce Link's connections to the Knights of Hyrule would be like in Ocarina of Time, when it's explained that Link's mother was running from the current war with her baby in her arms. Many fans presume Link's father was a knight fighting in battle at the time, and probably passed away as a result tragically. So since Link is oftentimes associated with the Knights of Hyrule, and the Knights are stated to be descendants of the original hero, and the Darknuts are probably knights themselves, what if Link is actually related by blood to the Darknuts we see across all the games? I mean, it could help to explain why Darknuts are so bad to the bone, but another question that may come up is, if the Darknuts and Hylian Knight armors we see are always so, you know, huge, then how could the normally short Link be possibly of the same bloodline? I actually do have a guess at that, and be warned, this next portion is pretty speculative stuff. Okay, so you know how in Twilight Princess, the hero shade appears to give the hero of Twilight some pointers on how to swing a sword, and Hyrule Historia went on to confirm that the hero shade is actually the hero of Time from Ocarina of Time. Did the height difference ever strike you as odd? I mean, look at the shade. He's massive. He dwarfs the hero of Twilight by several feet at least. Using Link as a comparison, the shade is actually right around the same size of a Darknut, and his armor, though bearing different designs, is structurally strikingly similar to So Darknut armor, what with that plumed helmet, chainmail layer, and circular shield. But how is this height possible if he's supposed to be Link's ancestor, the hero of time from Ocarina of Time, who is clearly not that huge in-game? And by the way, side note but important note, the hero shade is a shade, not a Stalfos. He's a ghost or specter of the hero of time. I don't want to make this video a 20+ long video, so I'm not going to take the time to go into the differences, but if you'd like a more in-depth look on the shade himself and my theory as to what happened to him, feel free to check out this theory at the card on the screen or by the link in the description below. But anyway, what age do boys normally stop growing? 18? 19? I mean, me personally, I stopped at the ripe age of 11, but I was always just big for my age. Link in Ocarina of Time is either 16 or 17 years old as an adult. There is a possibility that he could have grown for another year or so after the age we see him as an adult in-game. Also, his appearance in Twilight Princess takes place in the child timeline, meaning Link was sent back to his original timeline and then was able to grow up in those 7 years that we otherwise skipped over in the adult timeline and was free to eat and drink and sleep properly instead of just being sealed away. What if his nutritional intake was different and unlocked his ability to grow to his true height from his knightly blood? Combine his height with his knightly armor and you've got yourself Link, the hero of time, Knight of Hyrule, ancestor to the hero of Twilight and the Darknuts. And that is my theory on Link's relationship to the Darknuts of The Legend of Zelda. But wait, I almost forgot to cover something. I'm glad I decided to script it in at the last minute, including these comments I'm reading right now. Oh wait, let me skip forward a bit. Real quick, I wanted to touch on the fact that I believe the differing head design for Darknuts in the Minish Cap and Wind Waker is simply a line of Hylian Knights that were indeed cursed to be Darknuts, but instead of being cursed by Ganon and appearing like the Darknuts we see in Twilight Princess, they were cursed by Vati, who also turned them into the jackal-like beings we see them as in those two games. I don't necessarily have much proof for this little mini theory other than the fact that I believe the jackal Darknuts were in fact Knights of Hyrule, and Vati is pretty well known for being able to transform himself, others, and even the entirety of Hyrule Castle. So a transformative curse seems pretty well within his powers. I mean, I suppose it is possible that even the Darknuts from Twilight Princess and all other appearances are also jackal heads under those helmets, but I don't know, looking at the Twilight Princess Darknuts just makes it hard for me to imagine long ears being folded back somewhere under that chainmail, and their long noses being squished into those masks. But maybe that's just me. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed watching and subscribe if you haven't already for some awesome stuff to come. As always, huge thanks to my amazing patrons who make my day every day. And I even have some new additions to my elite crew. Meet Nova Crystal and T, who have decided to support my channel with the utmost of generosity. If you're interested in getting your name up here at the end of all my videos, feel free to check out the link in the description below, or check out my other video I just uploaded detailing some pretty cool stuff coming to the channel, including another way to get your name up here. And you don't even have to leave YouTube. Also down in the description are the links to my social media pages, so come on over and say hi. This is MaskedNintendoBandit signing out. Wash your hands out there, people, and stay safe. Peace!